In 2008, the Turok series was rebooted for console and PC. Instead of following the path laid out by Acclaim's titles, it seemed more inspired by Gears of War and other gritty, cover-based shooters popular at the time. Sure, you've heard it all before. But did you know about the mobile phone version? Yeah. Neither did I. Now don't get too excited. This isn't like the mobile games of today. We're talking flip phone technology, programmed in JavaScript. Yeah. That said, something about the Turok series really seems to bring out the best in these small, portable developers. Just like Battle of the Bionosaurs for the Game Boy, this is a very admirable attempt to distill a AAA first-person shooter experience into something that can run on exceedingly weaker hardware. As you can probably imagine, I needed to make this work on my modern PC in order to capture footage. And since I don't have much experience emulating retro mobile software, there was a bit of a learning curve. For starters, I played most of the game with a very narrow field of view. It functions fine, and maybe this is how it looked on certain displays, but if you plan on trying this game for yourself, you're really gonna wanna play around with the settings to get it just right. Story-wise, Turok for mobile is pretty much just a direct copy of Turok for consoles. You play as Joseph Turok, a former member of Wolfpack. Teaming up with a group of space marines, Turok explores an alien planet to track down Kane. He's both Turok's mentor and the leader of the mercenaries. Oh, and because of some science fiction mumbo-jumbo concerning accelerated evolution, the planet is crawling with dinosaurs. Now, when I say this is a direct copy, I mean it. A lot of dialogue is almost word for word.
Me and the boys are feeling a little offended. First you leave us without saying goodbye. Now you're slumming it with these rejects.
What's going on, Turok?
What can I say? Times have changed.
That's where you're wrong. You're Wolfpack. That's never going to change.
Which is really unfortunate since this also happens to be the weakest story in the series. It's bland and forgettable and doesn't really adhere to much of the franchise lore. I gave the console version a slight pass since I enjoyed some of the character development, but due to the truncated nature of this release, that's mostly missing here. I mean, yeah, there's Slade, Turok's frenemy, but in this game, everyone is Slade. Look, there he is again. And again. You get the picture. Sure, there was an opportunity to do something different here, but ultimately nobody is playing Turok Mobile for the story. The real appeal here is the gameplay. That's not to say it's incredible, but I did appreciate some of the design decisions. And ultimately, it holds up pretty well in terms of accessibility and fun. The game is broken into mostly linear side-scrolling levels. It's hyper-focused on stealth and combat, but there is a slight exploration element too, in the sense that you can often approach encounters from different angles. And additionally, there are a few dog tag collectibles to find in hard-to-reach areas. Really, a lot of what you're doing is built around Turok's limited actions. You can move left and right, and by pressing up on the directional pad, you can jump forward. The distance you cover is predefined, so you'll usually want to stand at the very edge of a platform. If you'd rather drop down, just continue walking forward, and Turok will hang and let go at your command. This technique is often handy for avoiding detection. Both leaping and hanging feel very natural and quickly become second nature. It also helps that movement is grid-based, so it's easy to position yourself with precision. The other thing you need to know is how to hide and/or dodge. These actions are context sensitive and performed by pressing down on the control pad. If Turok is in the middle of combat, this allows him to avoid damage for a short while. It's a bit like a spot dodge in Super Smash Bros., except you can hold it for much longer. Most fights will boil down to dodging until the enemy stops to reload, and then popping out to fire. It looks ridiculous, yes, but again, this is probably the best they could do given the hardware. And to be fair, it does pretty accurately recreate the feeling of popping in and out of cover, just without the actual cover. Pressing down outside of combat allows Turok to hide. The visual looks the same as dodging, but mechanically it's a bit different. You can hide for as long as you want, and while it looks silly when an enemy walks right up to Turok, rest assured they can't see him. Much like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, their vision is based on movement. You can use the hiding ability to avoid combat altogether, but more often than not, it's smarter to pop out behind an enemy for a cool knife kill. Yes, just like its console counterpart, the knife in this game is a big deal. Whenever an enemy gets too close, Turok drops his gun and starts slashing. What a maniac. I find the human enemies are smart enough to keep their distance, but for dinosaurs and bugs, you only get a second or two to shoot as they charge. So most of the damage you inflict will be with the knife. They never back away, and if you turn to run, you're as good as dead. In addition to the knife, Turok can also use a number of long-range weapons. And that number is 3. You start with the submachine gun, but as you explore, you'll find a shotgun and the tech bow. Additionally, you'll be able to increase their power as you play by finding upgrade pickups. Anyway, I get that the shotgun is meant to do damage at close range, and the bow can kill without alerting enemies, but you don't really need either of them. I beat 90% of the game with the submachine gun and only use the others for the sake of trying them. The submachine gun has great range and inflicts sufficient damage. Coupled with the super generous dodge mechanic, Turok can stand his ground against any enemy. Even the T-Rex boss is a cakewalk. Really, as long as you're patient and know when to stop firing, most one-on-one encounters play out the same. It's only when you're dealing with multiple enemies where things get tricky. Yes, it is possible to watch those muzzle flashes and take down 2 chain gun mercenaries at the same time, but it's always better to try to eliminate them individually, either by starting with a stealth kill or waiting until they split up. I would say this is when the mechanics are at their most interesting. It's not exactly a rich tactical experience, but there are definitely right and wrong ways to approach engagements. In the later levels, you'll need to deal with Kane's most elite soldiers. These are the guys in dark armor with blue pulse rifle weapons. They function a lot like the standard goons, but with a few unique quirks that help prevent the game from getting too stale. For starters, they can hide, just like Turok, emerging from the shadows and opening fire when your back is turned. Since their weapons are so powerful, this can be pretty deadly. Thankfully, their hiding spots are always the same, so once you die to them once, you can be ready the next time. The other quirk is their varying attack patterns. They alternate between holding their fire or unleashing just a quick burst. The best counter is to stick to peppering them. It's better to prolong a fight than die trying to rush through it. Turok Mobile isn't a particularly fast-paced game anyway. It's all about making calculated moves, which I can appreciate. What's not so great, however, is the regenerating health system. It's a lot like the console game, except stupidly slow. After a fight, you'll want to move ahead and keep exploring. But it's in your best interest to stand and wait. Even if you're 90% healed, that last 10% might be the difference between life and death. I would say this is definitely a major flaw. And given the game's methodical rhythm, it absolutely murders any sense of momentum. Outside of the normal gameplay loop, you'll also encounter a few dinosaur shooting gallery segments. In these action set pieces, you gain the ability to, walk backwards. Actually, it's more useful than you might think. Since dinosaurs are spawning in groups from every direction, maintaining proper spacing is essential. Each group can endure quite a bit of sustained fire, and more enemies will almost certainly spawn behind you. So, success is all about timing your movements, both in terms of advancing and retreating. That being said, I never died once during any of these segments, so I guess it's pretty forgiving. The other big change of pace is the final fight against Kane. In the console version, it's a quick time battle, but here it's more like tug of war. Dare I say, I think the mobile version actually has the upper hand here. Since Kane is Turok's mentor, he knows all the same tricks. If you try to attack with your knife, you'll always dodge. The only way to defeat him is to wait for him to make the first move. If you time your dodge right, you can counter, forcing him to leap back to avoid the hit. This is how the fight goes, with the two of you gaining and losing ground until one of you falls into lava. It's not like amazing or anything, but I do appreciate the fact that this game features a distinct final fight, and that the developers took the time to make it unique. In terms of presentation, the game is similarly impressive. The 2D art is crisp and colorful and does a surprisingly great job of capturing the feel of the console release. I did have a few issues with the field of view not showing me everything I needed to see, or it taking too long to reposition, but this was never much of a hindrance. And I can't be sure it wasn't just a problem with the emulation, as opposed to the game itself. The soundtrack is fine, not great, but not painful to listen to. And while there aren't any sound effects, that's par for the course for mobile games of this era. Really, for what it is, there's just not too much to complain about. Heck, for added replay value, it even has achievements. Crazy. So yeah, I went into Turok Mobile with low expectations. And, it was a pleasant little distraction. I think if you're a Turok fan, it might be worth a try just for the novelty alone, but ultimately there's just so many other better games out there. It's hard to justify the trouble of finding a copy and then getting it to work. Seriously, this is bordering on lost media. Fun game, but stick to the console version.